Welcome back, everyone, to Enterprise Security Weekly. I'm, of course, your host, Paul Sidorian, and here with John Strand on the lines via Skype to talk about our topic for today, to MSSP or not to MSSP. That is the question, which is often posed to us, and people ask me, and I'm sure they ask you all the time, John, especially doing penetration testing, if there's especially areas that you've pointed out that are weaker, do they take... How much of their security program do they take and let someone else manage and worry about it? And the answer is different for every organization, but I wanted to just cover some of those topics today. John, I don't think we've ever really had this conversation, you and I. I'm curious to see where you weigh in on the whole MSSP thing.
So I like how you wrote this out. It's basically like a sand slide without complete sentences.
I did. Our notes for today are copied and pasted from slides from a presentation that I gave a while back. So it's not really a coincidence why they read slides, because I was lazy. But I basically captured my thoughts on MSSPs and I put them in slides, and that's what I wanted to use as a kind of a guideline for our conversation today, John.
Yeah, so I love the goal and the fit, right? Goal, fit, measure, right? So goal, implement security in my organization so I don't have to or I can't shift the liability. Fit, we should be able to call them and make sure they do security for us. Measure, we don't get hacked. Yeah. I think if you're hiring an MSSP specifically because you want somebody else to prevent you from getting hacked, it's gonna hurt.
That's the wrong goal, right? I mean, that's why I kind of called it out, because that's oftentimes the goal that people have. They're like, well, I don't want to deal with most of this security thing, and I don't want to get hacked, so I'm just going to hire an MSSP.
Yep.
Kind of dangerous.
Yeah, and by kind of dangerous,
I mean, that is dangerous. I mean, that's bad.
So if we take all of the stuff that Paul said at the beginning of the show about trying to be nice to vendors and things like that, we immediately throw it out the window and say, that's just dumb. Don't do that. So it is just dumb. But does that mean that MSSP is completely worthless?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
Let's go deeper. Goal, provide monitoring and detection service to remediate low-hanging fruit. Fit, integrates with our current security policies or procedures. Measure, we prevented X number of incidents and save X number of dollars with internal security by using an MSSP. Now that's interesting. If you're using the MSSP to capture the low-hanging fruit, the attack du jour, the ransomware du jour, that actually makes sense to me at that point. If you want someone to do the triage and the easy stuff and just kind of take care of it, okay. I think that's getting a little bit more interesting.
Well, and I think one of the ways in which you can sell this as value within your organization, or MSSPs, you want to steal this and use it to sell your own value, is if I have an organization and I say, okay, I'm going to let my MSSP do X, and they're going to catch the low-hanging fruit, and I define that as, ABC, these three things, right? They're going to monitor my SIM. These are just examples. They're going to monitor my SIM. They're going to monitor my firewalls. They're going to do firewall changes. I'm going to review that process on a monthly basis for an hour. But that saves me, 16 hours a week. And then I'm going to take that 16 hours a week and I'm going to start a threat hunting program, and I'm going to implement some kind of endpoint protection. You have to weigh the value of those things. Now, in the examples I just gave, if I have security professionals working for me, and I know that they don't have to worry about some of the logistics that go around looking through SIM for stuff, for the low-hanging fruits, for the easy stuff to find, and they don't have to worry about managing firewalls, and they just have an oversight role in this, which then frees up their time to go do a full threat hunting program, and lets them implement some kind of endpoint protection and manage it properly. Now, granted, endpoint protection has not an easy thing to implement and has its issues, but if you don't have any kind of endpoint protection, I think it's something that you do need to protect the users that are wandering all across the world on the internet. So that's an important part, I think, of a security program. And you have about 40 vendors to pick from in that space. So don't take that project lightly. I think that's true value, right? I mean, I think you may not, it's not like a return on investment, like I'm saving money kind of thing, but I think it's a better security investment for an organization. I mean, it's going to differ per organization. That's just an example, but I think that's the kind of thinking. And you don't take those categories as literal, right? I mean, basically take some of the easy stuff that you can teach other people to do and let the MSSP do it so you can focus on cooler stuff and stuff that wouldn't lend itself to an MSSP, such as stuff that requires an intimate knowledge of your environment, such as threat hunting.
Mm-hmm. So, and then we go one step further. You actually break down. I kind of like this. I want to ask you some questions on it, since we kind of talked about co-manage, manage. Firewall, IDS, VPN, and SIM equals good MSSP. So, what's your thinking on that?
Yeah, so I tried to identify some of the common protection technologies that we have and recommend ones that would allow an MSSP to do good for your organization and not have a lot of shortcomings that we sometimes affiliate with an MSSP program. So managing your firewall, I think that's good. I will caveat that with give it some oversight. Do a firewall review like every once in a while. I mean, because essentially what you do is if you just let the MSSP handle all the firewall requests, and then like one day you're going to go to your firewalls and you can be like, oh, look, hey, someone created an any permit rule on all our firewalls at the very top. That's interesting. Everything's working, but where everything's exposed to the internet. This is bad. Why is our incident response team really busy all of a sudden? So there has to be some kind of oversight, right? So you have to represent somewhat, to a certain extent, the insights in your organization. So I think firewall is good, but with some oversight. Same thing for intrusion detection, intrusion prevention. There's a lot of tuning that goes with that. If they can do some of the tuning that doesn't require a whole bunch of knowledge about your systems, and they will learn about your systems as well to a certain extent. I mean, they do have turnover like any other organization. But deploying those technologies, even in log-only mode, and then you're capturing the log somewhere else and using that in your own analysis, it takes some stuff off your plate, so that can be a good technology. Provisioning of VPN and VPN users, and as well as some SIM kind of function. And I think that's going to vary on the kind of SIM that you have, if you're getting a SIM from the MSSP or not. I think it's good because of the vast volume of data that we're getting in our SIMs today. And a lot of us have more than one SIM solution today. Maybe you have a capture everything SIM, and then you have an analytics SIM, and then you have a UBA solution, which is reading data from your SIM. Let your MSSP help you with some of that analysis. Don't let them do everything, but I think they can add value there. If you provide them with certain patterns, when XYZ happens in this way, this to us is bad. And if you give them some guidance, I think they can really help with your going through some of your logs.
Yep. I also think that whenever you're dealing with an MSSP, I just want to reiterate that you have to test them. You can't just hand it off and expect them to do everything. You need to go through and do your own assessments, maybe internal pen tests, vulnerability assessments every once in a while. Maybe load some malware on a system to see if they can actually detect it. You have to keep them honest. Because we've noticed over the years, whenever we're testing for many MSSPs, that they don't detect a damn thing at all. Whenever we're testing, they just don't. And then the customer basically jumps all over them and basically says, hey, BHIS came in, did all this, you guys didn't detect anything, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. And then the next time it actually gets a little bit better. So if they think they can ignore you, they absolutely will ignore you. So you need to be that kind of very high demanding customer. So you call them up and say, hey, I just had a Meterpreter session leaving my environment and it's been running for 24 hours. How come I don't have any notification?
If they ask what is Meterpreter, that could be bad. Could be an indication.
That would be a bad sign. That would be an indication there's something very wrong.
Yes. But, and I think a lot of that stems from that the MSSP is taking care, in some cases, thousands and thousands of clients. They can't have a deep level of understanding of your network and your systems. But you have to enable them to have that understanding. I like your strategy, John, of having a test and then going to them with the results and being like, hey, like you missed all this stuff, and then actually getting better the next time. That's progress. So I think a lot of people think about an MSSP as just transferring responsibility. I look at it as more of an extension of your security team that you have to maintain oversight over.
Yep, absolutely.
So some of it's a perception issue. Now, some people ask me, well, what about letting my MSSP do some patch management, because I really need some help with patch management, and I understand where that's coming from, and manage my DNS. To me, those are two areas that you got to do internally. Patching a system, only the administrators and the users and the developers and application owners are going to understand everything that's impacted by a particular patch. So that would be an area where I would not recommend using MSSP. DNS as well. You can screw things up in DNS, and if you don't understand, again, all the interoperability and all the dependencies in DNS, you can potentially break things or introduce security flaws as well. So I would not recommend those two areas of technology as something that you let your MSSP do. Can you think of others, John? Do you agree with my choices there?
No, I absolutely agree. I agree 110%.
Now, endpoint security is one area where MSSPs they're solving a problem there, and we've talked about the issues with deploying and maintaining and implementing endpoint security, or really any kind of endpoint technology. And some people are turning to MSSPs to help them. Some MSSPs either have their own endpoint products or integrate with other people's endpoint products that they'll maintain on your systems. And I put that as somewhere in the middle. I think it depends on how many endpoints you have. I think it depends on which endpoint solution you're using. I think it depends on what are your goals for your endpoint product that you're choosing. So to me, endpoint security is somewhere in the middle, John.
Oh, okay. So like endpoint security, if you look at like Carbon Black integrating with Red Canary, I think that works because you're dealing with a tremendous amount of data. And also people are trying to use Carbon Black as a detection mechanism, and it's really was designed as kind of a black box for what's going on the network.
And a lot of MSSPs do support Carbon Black. They'll support your Carbon Black installation.
Absolutely, they do. So, okay, so we move forward and we start looking at maybe solutions like we just had an opportunity to look at Vision, and fantastic product with amazing capabilities, and it's hitting security at a completely different kind of approach. I like that. I think that's kind of neat whenever it's something new as far as the workstation. But I still go back to the idea that you need to be continuously testing these things, even if it's on the endpoint, especially if it's on the endpoint. If you expect that you can just have somebody run it for you and that whole problem is now completely off your plate, you're probably going to be very, very, very disappointed.
Yeah, no, I agree. Any what else on MSSPs, John? What do you see out there? You have slightly different perspective than I do in certain technologies. And I'm sure you have customers that have MSSPs. What are some other advice you have for people with MSSPs?
I would recommend getting on a security mailing list and shooting out an email to the people on the security mailing list and saying just flat out, hey, what MSSP do you recommend? I'm looking at this MSSP. What are your opinions on it? There's a number of different mailing lists out there. We watch very closely the GPON mailing list for SANS, but there's a lot of different security mailing lists. Jump on a security mailing list, maybe 3 or 4, throw the question out as far as a hand grenade in the room, and then just back away and open a bag of popcorn. You're going to learn a lot because people that are actually active customers of these MSSPs, we've noticed if it's a good product, people love to say and talk about good products, but if it's a crap product, you better watch out. It's gonna explode in your face very quickly.
Well, and I think security people like to talk about their crap product experiences too.
Yep.
Maybe more so than their good experiences. Yes, this is my first podcast where I forget to mute my phone during the.
It sounds like it's closing music, actually. Maybe that's time. Maybe it's our notification that our 45 minutes are up.
Maybe it's time. Yes, it very well could be. So, John, do you have recommendations for the last thing, size of your MSSP? Do you go big? Do you go to the big players? I mean, there's certainly a very short list of big players. Do you go somewhere in the middle? Do you go to the small guy? I think there's pros and cons to each.
I strongly recommend going with the small guys and the ones that have something to prove, the people that are scrapping, the people that are trying really, really hard. It seems like as they get bigger, a lot of these different places just flat out stop caring. They become a cash cow.
The quality definitely goes down in their drive to get bigger. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go with a small scrappy firm. Test them out and give them a chance.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you very much. This was another awesome episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Make sure you go to securityweekly.com/subscribe, where you can subscribe to all of our shows individually or get a main feed of 3 of our shows, those being Paul's Security Weekly, Hack Naked TV, and this show, Enterprise Security Weekly. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.